Hello guys and welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. Once again I'm Greg and this is the starting 11 show. Of course we've got Fulham next. We'll call out the Marco Silva derby. We come off the back of a pretty impressive win against Crystal Palace, which has buoyed us after some quite bad form. We played really well against Palace, 3 goals, all came through some good football. You know, we were playing and we were creating in a way I haven't seen us do so far this season. I'm not sure if that was the impact of having Calvert-Lewin up front, but you know, the interplay that we were starting to connect. We've seen flashes of it all season where we've got in and around the box and played some nice football, but it's not culminated in a chance. This time we managed to just find that last ball, that incisive last play that seemed to result in us shooting and scoring in the end. So very happy, and more of the good news. Nathan Patterson is fit, should be able to start this game. On the flip side of the coin, I'm reading that Yerry Mina's had yet another injury setback. I'm starting to feel like it's cut our losses time on that front. He seems to be far too injury prone. That being said, going into the team, as I always like to say, coming off the back of a win, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think we have a really good shape now. I think defensively we look really solid. Patterson coming back will only increase that. Our midfield was being asked questions, but that was by teams like United and Spurs, who we have to expect are better than us. And I don't think we were necessarily being thrashed in those games. I thought we were maybe a competent attack away from being able to box a little bit smarter than we were. You know, it was quite clear in those games we were holding out for a defeat and a last minute counter. Holding out for a draw, but maybe trying to punch on the counter and make it hurt for like a 1-0 or something like that. But we just didn't have the attack to facilitate it, so we ended up absorbing pressure, conceding goals inevitably, and having no answer when that happened. So midfield I think looks good when being questioned by the teams in and around us, which is much more than we could say last season, where the teams in and around us were relegation contenders and were still dominating us in the middle of the park. Front three still needs work. I think in January we will try and address that. I just don't think collectively there's enough threat and enough contribution that actually leads to goals. So that being said, don't change much. Pickford in goal. I think Patterson walks back into the right back spot. Coleman has been being targeted, especially against the teams that have faster, more agile, younger wingers who could just attack and cause him a lot of problems and ask a lot of questions. So I think Patterson walks back in. Cody and Tarkowski, of course, stays as a centre-back partnership, which has been a shame for Holgate since he's come back, because there really is no route back into the team for him at the moment. Mikalenko at left back. Midfield would stay the same for me. Onana, Garner and Iwobi. I know there have been questions of Garner coming back in. He's looked really good in flashes. Also, there were questions about how Garner was handling the bigger games. He was a little more wayward in passing. Felt a little less secure on the ball, but back to his best at Palace. And I think this is a game more on that calibre. Onana next to him, of course, keep developing, and Iwobi slightly in front, who is... He had a... I mean, against United's and Tottenham's, we've got to expect that players are going to have slightly rockier performances. I think a few people, probably with some sort of residual fear from last season, hit the panic button instantly and they go, oh God, Iwobi's resorted back to type. He made a few mistakes. He's given the ball away. But we've got to expect that our players are going to... the form is going to wobble, and of course in those bigger games that's where we're most likely to see it happen. So to see all 3 of those guys go into the Palace game and dominate that midfield, absolutely run it, should be such a positive sign for us that it's not their form falling off a cliff, it's just a couple of bad games against top teams. So that being said, I'd keep the midfield the same. I would like to see longer cameos for Garner maybe. I still like to see Tom come on every so often, so keep that as is. And again with the front line, Calvert-Lewin I think was back to looking like a threat. He looked fit in that game. I've seen him play a few games, a few cameos in the last season and a half where he's come on and just not looked up to task from beginning to end. He's looked tired, non-physical, a little switched off, not match fit I suppose is what you'd call that. But hopefully the Palace game is a bit of a catalyst for him staying fit, finding some form, not going into the World Cup, but in so much that I think he'll be chosen, but going into the World Cup in so much as that he can hit some form going into that period and come back fighting fit. Calvert-Lewin instead of Mopai, and then of course Gordon and Gray on either side, who are both very dynamic, very aggressive on their day, but just lack that final ball and some decision making. I think if those two could get decision making, final ball in their play, I'd be pretty happy with keeping them as options. But I still think at this point we need someone. Dwight McNeil obviously came in and had some great link up with Iwobi at the end of the last game, resulted in a great goal. But I still think he's not proved quite enough just from that. So, give him another substitute cameo appearance like that, and if he can recreate the form he hit at the end of that game, then great. He can kick on and we can see who he looks to replace in that front line. But for now, let's go with what worked at the beginning. So Pickford, Patterson, Cody, Tarkowski, Mikalenko, Garner, Onana, Iwobi, Gordon, Calvert-Lewin and Damari Gray. What do you think about that team? As I say, I wouldn't change too much if it worked last time out. Do you think we've got a chance against Fulham? Do you worry about Marco Silva? Psychologically at all? Do you think, if we went out and lost to a former manager who we sacked and has gone to a worse club, bought them up and then go on to defeat us, does that say a little bit about our development in the meantime? What do you think about Marco Silva as a manager? Is he proving... this is more a question to the people who wanted him sacked, which I am looking myself in a reflection here because I was one of those people. Has he proved some of the naysayers wrong with what he's doing with Fulham? Was he more of a project manager? He inherited something bad and didn't get enough time? I don't know. Answer all of that in the comments. Let me know if this is the team you'd go with, and hopefully we can go in next game again and I can say the same. Let's keep things the same. So, cheers guys.